welcome. This is Your Mac Life for Wednesday, December the 10th, 2014. My name is Shawn King. This is show number 1036. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on the show, whether you're listening in to us live or whether you were tuned into the archive. Thanks very much for joining us here. Just 15 days, 15 short days, 2 short weeks and a day before Christmas. Hopefully you're getting your Christmas shopping done. We were just talking to Sly in the IRC chat room before the show began, the pre-show. She said that she's taken 2 days off of work to go Christmas shopping. She's already got stuff. She's got Eli's getting an iPad mini and Catherine's getting an iPod Touch. That doesn't seem fair, Sly. Eli is the younger one, so why is he getting an iPad mini and Catherine getting an iPod Touch? I think Catherine's getting robbed. So there's all kinds of Christmas shopping going on, and as always, we remind you guys, this is a big time of the year for people shopping online on Amazon.com and other places. If you do shop on Amazon.com, we'd appreciate it if you came to YourMacLifeShow.com first and just clicked on one of the links that you see on the left-hand side of the page. Just scroll down a little bit, and you'll see the Amazon.com links. And those are links to just things that I've found of interest or thought were a good deal or things that you might be interested in. You don't have to buy that particular thing on Amazon.com. You just click on it, and what Amazon does is it adds a little cookie into your browsing session, and anything you buy during that browser session, Your Mac Life gets a bit of a kickback from. If you buy the exact thing, we get a bigger kickback. But if you buy anything, I think it's like 1% or 2%. It's not a lot. But, you know, for a few hundred Your Mac Life listeners do that, and once a month I get 50, 60, $100 from Amazon.com, and I turn around and buy more Amazon.com stuff. I was just saying earlier, again, in the pre-show, that I bought a tank protector for my motorcycle. And just a hunk of plastic that goes, you may have seen this on motorcycles. It looks like a design on the tank, but it's a piece of plastic that protects the tank from your motorcycle's belts and buckles and zippers and that kind of stuff. Protects from scratching and rubbing up against that part of the tank. It's called a tank protector. And so your Amazon bucks that you guys have kindly gone to the Amazon.com through YourMacLifeShow.com, then Amazon gives me Amazon money and I spend it on more Amazon things. It's kind of a vicious circle, isn't it? So that's what I did. I bought some motorcycle protecting stuff on Amazon.com. It just arrived in the mail today. Yay! I'll put that on the bike. It's been raining here. Thank God it's raining and not snowing like it is in so many other places. If you haven't had a chance, by the way, on tonight's show, we'll talk to our friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. He's been using his iPhone 6 Plus for 3 months now. He's got an article up on The Loop about that, and we'll talk to him about that. We'll talk a little bit about Apple lawsuits, Apple video depositions of Steve Jobs and why the media wants to see it. Is it ghoulish of the media to want to see this stuff? Supposedly, because it's in the public interest? I think so. We'll talk to Jim about that. And we'll also talk about gift giving, how you should do it. Guys, this is mostly directed at guys because we're the ones who screw this up more often than not. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some photography questions that I've gotten over the past week from you folks in our Starting Point Photography segment. If you haven't had a chance to, especially for the Canadians out there, to see the Montreal Canadiens ceremony honoring the great Jean Beliveau, who passed away earlier this week. Beliveau played for the Canadiens from 1950 to 1971, 21 years, won 10 Stanley Cups. I think he's won certainly the most Stanley Cups, and possibly the most world championships of any single sports player of the major sports. As we were saying on Twitter, no one does ceremony like the Canadians do. They just do an amazing, amazing job of it. It was sad. It was sweet. The video of his wife literally breaking down towards the end of it and sobbing, understandably so, was so heartwarming and touching and sad. And if you didn't have a tear in your eye watching it, then you're not human. His seat, they had his number 4 jersey on the seat, and every commercial break they lowered the lights in the stadium in the Bell Center in Montreal and put a spotlight on the seat. I'm very happy to hear that the Canucks paid their respects. Belleville was on display is the wrong. Oh, lying in state. Yeah, on display is the wrong way to say it. He was lying in state in the Bell Center, and the Canucks that morning went and paid their respects to both him and the family. So it was great to see the Canucks participating in that. One of the amazing things is watching the video of Belleville playing in the era he played, 50s and 60s and early 70s. It's hard to imagine hockey players in general playing without helmets, and goalies in particular playing without face masks. Every time I see that, it still boggles my mind that goalies played without masks up until the 60s, late 50s. They must have been some ugly mofos. They must have had some nasty-ass cut-up faces. What a brutal sport to play without face protection of some kind. But then when you look at the other gear the goalie was wearing. I mean, they're wearing shin pads that look like the stuff we had when we were kids, and gloves that look like the baseball mitts we had. Little itty-bitty tiny protective equipment compared to what the guys are wearing now. They look like abominable snowmen blocking the entire net nowadays. But yeah, and they didn't have any teeth. You saw a lot of missing teeth in some of the video. In some of the shots they had, there was a lot of missing teeth. Well, it's the nature of the sport. You play a sport like that without facial protection, and all the players are going to lose. Still to this day, I'd say a good 35 to 45% of the players, at the very least, don't have their front teeth. I don't. And I didn't play professional hockey. I just lost my teeth being a kid playing hockey. So yeah, it's something that's pretty endemic in our country for men of a certain age to not have their front teeth because they got knocked out playing hockey. So yeah, if you get a chance, go and find that video of the goodbye ceremony, for lack of a better term, to Jean Beliveau. Sad, but still wonderful. So we'll talk to Jim Dalrymple a little later on. Did you see this story from the New York Times? It has nothing to do with Macintosh. I just thought it was kind of interesting. A one-way trip to Mars. Many would sign up. I thought it was kind of interesting. Would you sign up for a one-way trip to Mars? You're not a scientist. We're just average people. Now, the vast majority of folks have got family and friends they wouldn't want to give up. But that being said, I'd go in a heartbeat. Knowing it was a one-way trip, knowing that you were going to die on Mars. Hopefully on Mars, not on the way to Mars. Yeah, I'd go. Ever since I saw the story this afternoon, I was thinking, yeah, I would definitely go. And I've got no science background whatsoever. I'd probably just be ballast. A lot of ballast, too. But yeah, I'd go. You'd go down in history. That's not why I'd do it, but you would certainly go down in history as one of the first people to set foot on Mars, on a different planet. Because as I've said before, in many different venues, that's where we're headed anyway. This planet isn't going to last us forever. We are meant to, I believe, explore the stars and leave this planet. It's just a matter of time. Because obviously if we don't leave, we're going to die here as a species. So someone's got to start. Someone's going to be the first one to go. The Mercury astronauts were the first group of Americans to leave the planet. The Apollo astronauts were the first to land on another object outside of Earth. Someone's going to be the first one on Mars. and knowing full well it was a one-way trip, I'd still go. There's no doubt in my mind that I would absolutely go. It's funny, the headline is a one-way trip to Mars, many would sign up, and my first thought was, many would sign up other people too. I got, if I couldn't go, I got some names that I'd like to put on the list for them to go. I can definitely see one or two people that I would put on the list. That's right, you get off the planet. That's right, I'm sorry, you have to go. And another thing I found, I don't know where I found this or why this is interesting to me. Canadians, as Canadians, we always make fun of Americans. That's just our national sport, one of them. And one of the things we make fun of is things that Americans aren't allowed to have. And the primary example always is, from a Canadian point of view, that Americans are allowed to have guns, but they're not allowed to have Kinder eggs, which is bizarre. A Kinder egg is kind of like a Canadian version of, or a British version of, a Cracker Jacks box with a prize in the middle. A Kinder egg is a little chocolate egg, and when you break it open, there is a little toy inside. And apparently the danger to Americans is little kids get these things and they swallow them and they choke and they die, which is awful. But they aren't banned in Canada. They're literally banned in the United States. So you can have a gun, but you can't have a Kinder egg. But Canadians can't feel as smug as we might want to. I didn't realize that baby walkers are banned in Canada. Apparently they were banned in 2005. I remember my little brother Chucky being in a baby walker, and us pushing him around the house in a baby walker. What's wrong with baby walkers? And those magical relight candles are banned in Canada too. The ones you blow out and they come back on. Do you know how that works? There's a metal inside the wick which burns at a lower temperature than the candle flame. So when you blow it out, there's still enough heat in the wick to relight the metal, and the metal relights the wick. I think it's a chromium-based metal or something like that. But I thought that was kind of odd. Because I know relight candles are still available in the States. And I understand why they're banned, because they relight. And they can be a danger if they're not put out properly. If you take a relight candle and just throw it in the garbage, it'll relight and catch your garbage on fire. And the baby walker thing kind of makes sense from the point of view of, if and this is only if you're an idiot parent, that if the baby walker's on the second floor of the house and the kid baby walks himself down the stairs, that's a danger. But any parent who puts the baby walker on the second floor of the house or near stairs is a frickin' moron. So yeah, I didn't see the danger of baby walkers. Just a couple of little things that popped up in my wanderings around the internet this past week. Later on, we'll talk about your photography questions. If you have any questions about photography, send them off to me, Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. Any questions in general, on air at yourmaclifeshow.com or at Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. And up next, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com about his iPhone 6 Plus review that he posted up on The Loop. All that and much, much more coming up. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King, joined on our phone by our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
Doing good, Shawn. How are you?
I am good. Thank you very much for joining us. Folks, I mentioned earlier that Jim has written his 3-month review of the iPhone 6 Plus. We talked about this on Amplified this morning, but I want to talk a little bit more tonight. Jim, what's your favorite part of using or having the iPhone 6 Plus?
It doesn't hurt my eyes.
Our old,
Seriously.
tired eyes. Yeah, no kidding.
It's awful, but my eyes are. I need reading
Yeah,
glasses now.
yeah.
And looking at the iPhone 5S, the screen, the Retina screen on these devices is so nice, but I can barely see the words on them.
Yeah.
So when I get an iPhone 6 Plus, I can at least see the words. Now, as I said in the story, it still looks a lot clearer and crisper when I put on my glasses and, I look at it, but I can at least see it and get some things done.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to write that. It's the first time I've ever written something, 3 months into using a product. But I think it's really the first time that I've used a product, and I thought that I would be using the 6, not the 6 Plus.
Yeah.
And, there I am with the 6 Plus.
What have you done with the 6 has gone back to Apple?
No, I use that for different things when I test out apps and things like that. So, as long as I have, even that screen is a bit bigger and it helps. But, for me, the at this point, the bigger the better. So
that being the case, is there you said you still use the 6. What do you use the 6 for?
Well, more for testing.
Just
stuff.
testing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not something you pick up on a regular basis anymore?
I do, but if somebody sends me a music app, I don't want to take it. Nothing is really going to happen because of the way that Apple sets up the iPhone. So I'm not necessarily concerned about that. But I have my work phone, and that's the way that I like to keep it. So
the interesting stat from Carolina Milanese in the U.S. in selling for just over, I guess, 3 months now, the iPhone 6 became the best-selling iOS device in the last quarter. 33% of devices sold were iPhone 6s. Interestingly enough, the iPhone 5S was the second best-selling model in the U.S. at 26%. The iPhone 5C was third with 18%. And the iPhone 6 Plus captured only 10% of iOS markets. Are we going to read too much into that?
yes,
Why?
because of availability.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean you can't read a whole lot into these numbers, and we've said before many times, you can make these numbers say whatever you want them to say.
Yep.
And if you want them to say that the iPhone 6 Plus isn't selling, then you can do that.
No.
You could also say that when you put availability at par with the 6, then maybe they would sell a bit better.
The iPhone 6 Plus is still in high demand in a lot of places, certainly here in Vancouver. On my travels, whenever I pass by a store that sells them that I might be able to buy one, I go in, hey, got any iPhone 6? No. No one's had 6 Pluses on any kind of regular availability where you can just walk into a store and buy a 6 Plus since the launch date. A lot of the smaller stores say we don't get it, we won't get any in this week. The bigger stores, even the Apple stores, say nope, we sold out. First thing this morning, we still got a wait list or whatever it might be. The 6 Plus is still in very, very high demand. Apple has yet to been able to make enough of them. Is that a problem for Apple? Or are they leaving money on the table by, for whatever reason, not being able to make enough of these things for people?
Well, I think that's a big guess at the best, because you could argue that the people that go for the 6 Plus will turn around and buy a Samsung device, or you could argue that, well, they'll just buy the 6. There's no way to really tell. I
Yeah.
mean, analysts can give their opinion, but nobody knows for sure. I certainly don't. I would say that it's, the safest thing is to say that it's split. People that specifically come in for an iPhone 6 Plus, they may actually want an iPhone, and the 6 will be fine. They're due for an upgrade and they want to do it now. They'll buy a 6.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody is coming into that wants that larger screen, and they'll just go buy a Samsung instead if they don't have it. I don't know. Nobody does.
I think that's unlikely, though. Don't you think that if it's just about screen size, then people are going to go for the cheaper version of it? But I think the people who want an iPhone 6 Plus are willing to wait for an iPhone 6 Plus as opposed to saying, oh, no pluses? What about a Galaxy Note? What about a Samsung something, something, something?
Well, I mean, yeah. Again, who knows?
Yeah.
I would if I could answer that without having get into everybody's brain. I'd be sitting right beside Tim Cook in his office. Hey Jim, what do you think of this? Well, Tim.
I just have this mental image of you and Tim sitting in his desk in his office with the feet up on the desk and both of you with a Heineken in your hand and just shooting the shit.
Yep.
It's a very funny mental image.
Yeah. It would work, I'm telling you.
What else would you do if you were sitting there with Tim? What else would you tell him to do?
I don't think. You know what I see when I look at my wrist? My wrist. That's got to be one of the best comments
It
of
really
all time.
is. Really, really is.
I don't know what I would tell Tim. I mean, the focus of Apple is very clear. And when a company gets as big as what Apple is right now, part of what I see as the difficulty is that they tend to lose focus.
Yeah.
And that's what people scream at these companies for. I remember back in the day when you used to be this great company and like Samsung is all over the place. They're just doing whatever. They're throwing things at the wall and whatever they hope works. But I think Apple remains very focused on its products, and you got to let them go.
Yeah.
So if there was anything that I would watch for, that would be it, just to see if Apple actually lost focus on what was important, and that's the quality of the hardware and software.
I have no problem telling BlackBerry what to do with their business because they obviously don't have a freaking clue what they're doing. I have no problem telling Samsung or Sony how to run their business because they don't know what the hell they're doing. I have never, in my recent memory, been able to say, hey, Apple should do this because Apple's doing just frickin' fine all by themselves without my advice, without anyone else's advice. They know what they're doing. It may be opaque to us. We may not understand it. But for the most part, 95% of the time, they know exactly what they're doing, and what they're doing is working for them.
Well, I have to agree. I mean, it's hard to fault Apple at this point.
Yeah.
Their stock is high. They're selling, more phones than anybody.
Yep.
Their iOS and what they were striving for this time around with iOS and macOS was a tighter integration. They've got that in ways that we didn't even anticipate seeing, like handoff and personal hotspot and things like that. These are the types of things that keeps Apple on top. It's not the fact that Apple comes out with a new product and, oh, we thought that they were going to come out with this new product. It's these features. I mean, you can call them killer features or whatever, but really they are the handoff, being able to start a document and pass it off to your computer, and all that stuff is just great. That's what we use every single day, and that's why it's so important. You know, there were features on other phones. There's features on Apple's operating systems that are cool to demo, but you don't use often. But then there are those features that like notifications.
Yeah.
I love notifications.
Hmm.
Probably the best thing Apple's done to the operating system, in years for me. And it literally saves me time because I don't have to go to that app to see what just pinged.
Yeah.
I can just look and see the notification and then it goes away. Beautiful feature. I
Hmm.
love it. Um, so, Apple keeps innovating, they keep changing, they keep doing the things that we need them to do as users, not even talking as like the investors would and Wall Street
Yeah.
would, but as users, they're doing what we want.
Did you see this time story? The Apple Watch will come out sometime early next year, and if you have fashion cred, Apple may want to hire you to sell its upcoming Apple Watch. This is something that we expected. It's interesting to see there's confirmation. The Apple stores are actually looking for Apple Store employees with a fashion background, with that kind of background, obviously in order to help sell specifically the Apple Watch, which obviously means there will be designated people in the store that they'll have a different shirt on, or they'll have an Apple Watch on that will be able to demonstrate, have access to, and demonstrate the Apple Watch to potential customers. This makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
This is the way Apple should be doing this thing.
Well, Apple has geniuses to look after your problems with the product, and they have dedicated people, salespeople to help you out and buy something. Whether it's speakers or a computer or whatever. They're all over the
Yeah.
place. So it makes sense that they would have somebody that has a flair for fashion to go in and say, this is what I think. I mean, if you go to, I don't know, what are some high-end stores like,
Cartier.
well, or even clothing stores. You go in there, they have people there that will help you pick things out and help you try things on and tell you how you look or what you should use instead of that. There's no reason why somebody can't go in, a business person,
Mm-hmm.
in a suit or something and say, this is what I would like it to go with, suits like this, and they could say, okay, well, here's what I would do. I would buy this gold $15,000 Apple Watch because that's what I would do. Even when the hipster came in, yeah, I'd like you need that $15,000 watch.
I'm going to go into an Apple store and ask to at least see that watch. That's got to be a special order watch, though, don't you think? That's not gonna be a watch that'll be hanging around in the back of the store.
I don't know.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine Apple only selling that particular watch, the Edition watch. That's the watch I can see them selling in the higher end stores. I don't see them selling that watch in your local Apple store. The other ones, yes, the Sport Edition and that kind of stuff, yes, I can see them selling that in the store. But I think if you ask for the gold, the solid gold watch, which is going to cost, as we said, at least $5,000, that's the watch that you'll have to go to a specialized jeweler for, I think.
Well, we'll see.
And if there is, you tell me what the name of the store is, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to whatever store you want me to go to, just so I can take a look at that bad boy, so I can say I've seen a solid gold Apple Watch.
Yeah, I definitely want to see that.
Yep. But I think this shows that Apple is, Apple is also going to want you, and you're right that when you go to an Apple store and you have a specific issue and you mention it to someone, they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's our expert in this, Tim." Whether it be Final Cut Pro or whether it be photography or whether it be Mac Pros, whatever it is. So
Right.
you'll go into the store and say, "Hey, I'm interested in buying an Apple Watch," and they'll get on their little communication system and say, "Hey, bring out Susie. Susie, there's a customer here who's looking for the Apple Watch." Now, Susie's still going to have to be able to do all the other stuff Apple sales consultants do. She's going to have to know about the iMac and she's going to have to know about the other things, but she's going to be focused on the Apple Watch, like a lot of other employees are. They all wear the same uniform, but a lot of them have different specialties. So this is not something that's unusual, but it's nice to know that Apple's confirming it by looking for specifically for employees who have got some sort of fashion experience and fashion training. And this is the reason why, one of the reasons why Apple brought Angela Arendts from Burberry to Apple. So she can explain to the geeks at Apple how fashion is sold. It's not sold the same way as a Mac Pro. It's not sold the same way as an iPhone. There's a different way of selling fashion than there is other things. I'm sure that's her area of expertise and why she was brought on board.
But sure, but you could argue that all of Apple's products have been fashion oriented from the very beginning, really, except for that Performa years, not so much there, but especially since 99, 98, 99, they've all been. I mean, iPod, iPhone, MacBooks, Mac Pro. I mean, the Cube. These are. I mean, remember, Steve would say these are things that you want to have on your desk.
Yeah.
So I think that fashion has been an important part for quite a while for them. But now they're taking an extra step.
Yeah, I think in this regard, fashion is a focus as opposed to a benefit of the device. The Cube was definitely fashionable. There's no doubt about it. It was cool. It was very cool tech. You could argue that the iPhone is a fashion statement. We've seen that from many reports from China. It is an aspirational device among upper middle class, and upper middle class Chinese consumers. So yeah, Apple has had a fashion sense, but I think the Apple Watch is the first device they're selling specifically as a fashion item, if you know what I mean. ArcSign asks in the IRC chat room, it says, Shawn, ask Jim if Apple is shipping their newest and biggest phone to more countries quicker than ever before. And one of those countries is China, a gigantic market.
I don't understand the question.
Well, I think maybe that's what's he's sort of saying. Maybe that's what's causing the lack of availability is the fact that Apple is selling it in so many other countries right now. And
yeah, but it's strange because usually they fill out a demand in the U.S. first.
Yeah, but China, I think they're more likely to, and Apple's never going to tell us this, but I think I'd be willing to bet that Apple is shipping more to China because China is a larger market for Apple. Maybe not right now, but certainly going to be.
They can't lose the U.S. market though. They can't.
True. I don't think they are though. I really don't believe. I think if you're going into a store looking for an iPhone 6, an iPhone 6 Plus, you'll wait. You will not then go to the next store and buy a Samsung something.
Yeah. Maybe.
I just can't. I think Mac users, iOS users they want that device. They don't necessarily want something else. You posted up, or you or Dave, sorry, I don't remember who posted the story. I think this is interesting in light of some other things. United to equip 23,000 flight attendants with the iPhone 6 Plus. There's my iPhone 6 Plus. Some freaking stewardess has got it.
Exactly. 23,000 of them right there.
That's a sale. That's definitely a heck of a sale. And this is one of your stories. I'm going to assume you read the story. Why is United doing this?
Well, because it's a smart thing to do.
Okay.
They're going to put the manuals on there.
Yeah.
They're going to have easier access to safety. They're going to have easier access to everything. Now, the big question is, are all United flights going to be Wi-Fi enabled for them so that they can, do that?
Possibly, because it says the devices will have the ability to handle most onboard retail transactions. So at the very least, they'll have their own Wi-Fi, if not necessarily customer accessible Wi-Fi.
Right.
This, I think, and I haven't read the story because it popped up just before the show went live. I think this is an example of that IBM Apple partnership. I think this sale happened because of the additional security features Apple's put into iOS 8, and because Apple and IBM worked together to create apps for the airline industry, and this is a result of that.
Could be.
I think this is one of the first steps we're going to see to more and more of these gigantic sales where Apple's going to sell 10,000, 15,000, 23,000 devices into a particular company for them to use in these kinds of particular instances. I think it's brilliant too. I think it's the fruit of the labor of that Apple went through 6 months ago to make this deal with IBM.
Yeah, and you're going to see some of these other airlines are going to go with Samsung, and when their planes start landing at the wrong airports, then they'll switch to iOS devices and get everything back on track. Yeah, I'm on a flight to Denver, but I landed in Houston, so so
Now, Brian Monroe, our friend Brian Monroe in the IRC chat room, asked the question earlier in the pre-show, and I'll rephrase it. Do you see any concern that Chromebooks are now outselling iPads in the education market?
no.
Why do you laugh?
No, I just don't see it as a serious thing, the Chromebooks. I mean, maybe I underestimate them, but I think that there's a couple of different things with education. One is actually educating the students.
Yeah.
And it's incumbent upon the district and the teachers to make sure that they have the training so that you're just not giving devices to kids and saying, okay, learn.
Yeah.
There has to be a way to teach them how to use the devices to learn. The second thing is money. And, we're all aware that there's cutbacks and there's, I feel bad for teachers because they're underpaid as it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, schools are trying to get whatever they can for students and teachers as far as technology goes, and Chromebooks are it. Well, it's unfortunate.
Yeah. I think the other thing, and I said this to Brian when we were talking about it during the pre-show, is we have to know the reason why this happened. Like you said, budgets are being cut. Maybe they can get 2 Chromebooks for the price of 1 iPad.
Or maybe they can get 100.
Exactly. Maybe these decisions aren't made by teachers. Maybe they're made by the IT guys, and the IT guys or the bean counters. And the bean counters say, no, you have to buy these Chromebooks because we can see a profit of this, and this.
Right.
Just as we said, as you said off the top, you can make numbers do whatever you want to do. So without any sort of context of this story, it doesn't really make a lot of difference. The other aspect of this is, and the media will not do this, but the media should put a pin in this story and go back and look at it in 6 months, in 12 months, in 2 years, and to see if there are any gains being received by using Chromebooks, or whether maybe these folks have switched to something else, which I think is more likely.
Well, we've seen things like this happen before.
Yep.
with netbooks, and it always comes back.
Yep, that's right.
It does, and and that's why there's the quality of the device and the education that kids are getting, and then there's the money side. There's no possible way that you can argue about the money side.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. It's there.
Yep.
Administrators and school districts have to deal with it, and they do what they can. I wouldn't want to be them trying to make these decisions and realizing that I can't get them my kids iPads. I have to get them Chromebooks instead.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And that's what they want. It's a real shame. And that's the other thing too. Maybe teachers want Chromebooks. Maybe the teachers themselves say they can do more with a Chromebook. I have no problem with that. I don't think it's a huge issue. It's obviously a concern for Apple because every single iPad that doesn't get sold is less money for Apple. So they're concerned from that point of view. But I don't think there's a whole lot of running around pulling their hair out in one infinite loop of Apple being that worried about this.
Right. It's not. I doubt that you would find a school district or many that would say, we really don't want the iPad.
Yeah.
I think it's more, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
And, okay. There's nothing that Apple can do about that. You can't expect Apple to. I'm sure that they give the schools, a favorable discount, but you can't expect Apple to give it away for free. So, people need to make their own decisions.
We talked about this also on Amplified. Apple is battling reporters over sharing unreleased footage of Steve Jobs that was shown in the in the antitrust case in court on Friday. Is it ghoulish for
Yes, yes, it is.
Is there no case that you can see where there is some sort of usefulness?
None.
Okay, let me try again. Third time. This is not for you or me to decide what's in the public interest. It is
bullshit.
Okay.
Look, there are things that are in the public interest. If the president in a deposition admitted to wrongdoing, that is in the public interest. Seeing a video of Steve Jobs deposed on an iPod lawsuit is not in the public interest. Mm-hmm. The public may be interested in seeing it. That's a different story. It doesn't mean that they have the right to see it. I think that the news organizations, who did you say it was? CNN, Bloomberg, and
Associated Press.
Yeah. So what are they going to do? They're going to post it on their websites, yep. And they're going to get millions upon millions of hits coming to their website, and they're just going to sit back and rub their hands like the greedy little bastards that they are.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that it's in the public interest. Now, everybody listening to this and, everybody that reads The Loop and everybody out there would probably go and watch this video. And I understand the interest.
Sure.
I just don't think that it's necessary, and it's not in the public interest because there's nothing that's going to be exposed by this deposition other than people get to see Steve 6 months before he died.
Yeah.
And I don't see how that could possibly be in the public interest.
I think part of the problem is that we have maybe rightfully grown to distrust the media in these kinds of stories because of exactly what you said. I have not read, and I've read 3 or 4 stories about this, I have not read any arguments from the media organizations that augur in favor of doing this. They haven't given any good reasons for it. And without giving a good reason, the only thing I can think of, because I'm cynical, because I've been doing this for 20 years, is because you guys are just click whores.
Yeah.
And that's all you want it for. There's no other reason for it. And that being the case, all right, let's put it up on the Library of Congress website then. And CNET and AP and Bloomberg and CNN can't use the video on their own website. $10 says they drop that suit immediately if that was the case.
Exactly. Yeah, if they can't put it on their little TV channel and put it on their website, yeah, then they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's exactly the case, is that they really don't care. They've seen the video themselves. They've read the transcript. Folks, you can go read the transcript if you want to read what Steve Jobs said. But there is zero need for the public to see this video. None.
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
Agreed.
Our friend Les Posen down in Australia is listening to us. He said he was talking about the United Airlines 23,000 iPhone 6 Pluses with flight attendants. He points out from Apple's PR this morning, he says, this is the first suite of IBM Mobile First for iOS solutions, now available across multiple industries. Plan Flight is a travel and transportation app that addresses the major expense of all airlines, fuel, permitting pilots to view flight schedules, flight plans, crew manifests, report issues to in-flight ground crews, make more informed decisions about discretionary fuel. And Passenger Plus, which is a travel and transportation app, empowers flight crews to offer an unmatched level of personalized service to passengers in flight, including special offers, rebooking, and baggage information.
See, you should just have him on the show because he knows a lot.
Because he knew that. And you wrote the story.
No, that's a very good point. And if you notice in United's announcement, they also said that they renewed the iPad program that they started with the pilots in 2011
Yeah.
by giving them iPad Air 2s.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean these are great apps, and it's reasons like this that um, I think other airlines will come on board because it's already done for them. Everything is there, ready to roll.
Yep.
You just, change the logo from United to Southwest, and you're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Just
Um,
to point to a different database.
yeah. So I think it'll be a pretty big thing.
It's interesting too to read that description of the passenger plus type thing, and you can see how this is going to work. Now, it's not going to work for us in coach. There's no way this is going to happen for us sitting back in the cattle car section. But if a flight is delayed and you're in first class, just by reading that description of the Passenger Plus app, you can obviously see that your flight attendant will come up to you and say, "Hey, Mister Dalrymple, I see that you're scheduled to connect in New York City for Toronto. We're going to be late. Let me rebook that for you right now."
Right. Yeah.
And they'll do that for you right there on the spot, and then hand you another Heineken while you're in first class,
Yeah.
which is the way you travel anyway, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I wish.
Have you ever traveled first class?
I have.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
It is pretty cool.
It makes you sit there and go, "Oh, I see now.
Yeah.
I understand now."
Yeah, I do enjoy that.
I still remember the first time I flew first class. We were flying from New York to San Francisco for a Mackerel Expo, and because Lisa had frequent flyer miles, she had us upgraded to first class. We sit in these gigantic chairs, and the stewardess comes over, and the flight attendant, my apologies, comes over and just hands us champagne. I was just like, "What's this for? How much is this costing? How much?
Yeah.
How much you? I'm not paying for this." And Lisa was like, "No, you idiot, it's free." Like, really? Bring the bottle.
Yeah. I'll have some more, please.
Let me save you the trips back and forth. Just bring the bottle. And then, like after we take off, she hands us this piece of paper, and I open it up, and it's like a menu.
Yeah.
And I said to Lisa, "What's this?" She said, "It's the menu, stupid." I'm like, "You mean for like food? You're actually going to throw food at us in the back?" She said, "Yeah." And there was choices. And I flip over the back, and it said after dinner drinks, and they had scotch and whiskey and stuff. And I'm like, "Is this all free?"
I know, right?
I
And
didn't
then
realize it.
and then you look back in coach and smile.
Yeah, that's right. Sort of stand up and sort of, yeah, I'm up here in first class. Yeah, it's
As they're eating their peanuts and pretzels.
if they get that exactly. Yeah, but then the problem is when you do have to go back to coach, you think, "Oh man, this sucks even worse,"
Yeah, I know.
because now I know what the front of the plane is like.
Yeah.
This really sucks.
Uh,
Don't you travel enough now that you can get upgrades to first class every now and
oh
then?
yeah, you can get upgrades, sure, but um, I'm not one of those that can go out and buy the $5,000
Yeah.
ticket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. I mean, just to fly across country is a ridiculous expense, and some people deserve it. Some people can afford it. I could never do it on a regular basis, but it'd be nice. It
No.
was certainly nice the few times I was able to fly first class. It certainly made the trip easier on me, even though it's still flying and still unfun. It certainly makes the trip a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Folks, that's it for him. Again, we did an Amplified this morning. Unfortunately, it wasn't live. We had some problems with the live recording, but it's up on the iTunes Store. You can go to the iTunes Store, do a search for Amplified, or go to loopinsight.com, and it's right there on the front page, or 5x5.tv/Amplified to hear more from Jim. Jim, thanks very much for joining me, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Sean.
Talk next week. See ya.
Bye.
That was Jim Dalrymple from The Loop, loopinsight.com. Let me turn this phone off now. All right, boys. This is for you. This is for the gentlemen out there. I'm trying to help you. I do this every year. Every year, I try to help you guys out with your Christmas shopping. And it's already been mentioned in the pre-show. The first most important tip of Christmas shopping for guys, and for the ladies out there, it's also less of an issue, but it's still an issue. Do not ever buy your significant other anything related to exercise. Don't do it. Ever. Don't buy yoga pants. Don't buy a yoga mat. Don't buy instructional videos. Don't buy gym membership. Don't buy a treadmill or a stair climber or an exercise bike. Don't do it. Nothing good ever comes of that. And as Susan Gare pointed out in the IRC chat room, even if she asks for it, don't buy it. Because she might change her mind and then blame you, which is a whole different issue. It's also quite unfair, ladies. There's just nothing good will come of you, because the only thing that person thinks when they see that device is you think they're fat. You think they need to lose weight. That's just no other possible way of doing that. Because that's all it means. That all it absolutely means is you have told that person they're fat. Just don't. The other thing is, ask yourself, guys, are you buying the gift for her, or are you buying it for yourself? So, for example, you don't buy your wife power tools unless she wants them, unless she's good, unless she's Sly. If it's Sly loves tools. So buy her a tool she doesn't have. Maybe she needs a new bandsaw. I don't know. It's been a while. But for the most part, make sure that you're buying the gift for her and not for you. In that regard, don't buy appliances. You know, even if a family needs a new toaster, even if you need a new dishwasher, a new microwave, you buy that for the house, for example. Don't buy it and put the tag on it that says, for my lovely wife. Put for the house, for the kitchen, kind of stuff. She can open it, but don't say it's for her. The other aspect of it is, can the words novelty or gag be used to describe this gift? If the answer to that question is yes, do not buy it for Christmas, you dummy. Don't. If it's a gag gift, do not buy it. If it makes weird noises or sounds, don't buy it. She won't get the joke, guys. You might think it's the funniest thing in the world, but I guarantee you, she's not going to think it's funny. And the other thing is, and this is good for everybody, don't buy live things for Christmas. Don't buy puppies. Don't buy rabbits. Don't buy, maybe I'll buy a goldfish, but they're not presents. That's the kind of decision that you've got to make as a family over a long period of time. You can't just decide, I'm going to buy the family a puppy, without knowing all the things that the family can or can't do with a puppy. My apologies to the Gares, but Logan was pissing me off in the IRC chat room, so I had to ban him or kick him. He can come back, but he's got to not do what he was doing. This is a funny story. 17 gifts you always wanted as a kid that you can still buy today. Now, do you guys remember this one? Let me see if I can't pull this up. Remember this game? Mousetrap. I don't remember ever, me and my little brothers, ever actually playing Mousetrap. I remember setting it up. I remember pushing the little thing to make the Rube Goldberg stuff move around. That I remember doing. But I have no clue how to play Mousetrap. I don't think we ever played it. Sherry in IRC chat says, Mousetrap, I always wanted that. You can still buy it. You can still go and buy Mousetrap. Remember the Snoopy snow cone machine? That broke about 10 minutes after you started using it? You can still buy that. Don't. Because it doesn't get any more pointless than a Snoopy snow cone. Just crush some ice and pour some flavoring over top of it. I've never been a snow cone guy myself. I don't get the point of snow cones. I never have. Now, this present I never got as a kid, but my little sister, Mel, got this as a kid. Mr. Potato Head. You can still buy Mr. Potato Head. He's still a character. I still remember playing with my little sister and her thinking, Mel thinking it was funny as all get. Sherry, you need a link to Mousetrap? Sherry, go to Amazon.com and do a search for Mousetrap. There's not a whole lot there you need to link to. But my little sister Mel used to love putting the Mr. Potato Head pieces in the wrong places. So she loved putting like the ears where the eyes were, and oops, the wrong button, and the nose where the ears are supposed to go. She thought it was the funniest thing in the world to basically do a Picasso on Mr. Potato Head. But you can still buy that. What are the gifts that they have in this list? That another game that broke fairly quickly, probably made, maybe not. Remember Simon, the memory game? I could get about 10 colors into Simon. Now they cheat. So you can get Simon on your iPhone. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all to get Simon on an iPad. You have to have the physical Simon, where you have to bash away at it. You can't get Simon as an iPhone app anymore. That's cheating. This was a toy we got as kids that you can still get today that never made a lot of sense. It was cool as a kid, but never made a lot of sense. Remember Spirograph? Spirograph was really cool for about 10 seconds. Because all you could draw was circles. You could draw different designs of the circles, but it got really boring really quick, didn't it? I just thought Spirograph as a kid was cool to start off with, but got really tiresome really fast. So I never really got into. I wouldn't buy Spirograph now for a kid, say for example. Another game because we were boys that we broke 10 seconds after we got it. Rock'em Sock'em Robots. You can still buy Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but we were 9, 10-year-old boys, and that thing broke seconds after we started playing it. And then we would just get pillows and beat the hell out of each other. Pillows are much cheaper than Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Much more effective, too. Without a doubt, and I posted a story about this on The Loop a couple of days ago, another one of those toys that was utterly useless was the Slinky. You could do two things with the Slinky. You could try to push it downstairs, or you could sit there with the Slinky and have it go. That was it. Was there anything else you could do with the Slinky? And it didn't take long for your 4-year-old brother to ruin your Slinky. Didn't take long for him to either stretch it out so it wouldn't ever go back together again, or twist it, or get it all crumpled up together. And then it was useless. You couldn't untangle a Slinky. And now they got plastic Slinkies. I think that's cheating. I think Slinkies, yeah, were just for the most part were parents thought they were kind of cool, but kids found them awfully, awfully useless. Another toy that we got that you can still get as kids, but really, I think it's kind of lame, the Viewmaster. I know we had a Viewmaster when I was a kid, but I know I didn't find any real interest in it at all. You know why? Because we had TV. We didn't need the Viewmaster. We had television. We had real life stuff going on. And yeah, the Viewmaster was 3D, but that was kind of lame. It was never of any real interest to me. I mean, I looked through it once. Viewmaster wasn't one of those things that you picked up and played several times. The one thing on this list that surprises me from the point of view of the visuals of it is, let me pull this one up so maybe you can see the picture better. Oh, I've lost it. Nice job. Pull this up. Here we go. Come on back. And my sister had one of these. The Easy Bake Oven. Now, if you can't see that picture, the Easy Bake Oven I remember as a kid looked like an oven. You know, it looked like a full-size oven. I don't know what the hell this Easy Bake Ultimate Oven looks like. I don't know what that's supposed to be. It's not the Easy Bake I remember as a kid. And we pretty much made my sister make all her Easy Bake stuff like the first day of Christmas. And it was always awful. It was burnt. Because you're cooking with a light bulb. It was a dumb idea. You're cooking with a light bulb. So, you know, you'd make bad brownies and bad cake and that kind of stuff. And it got pushed to the side and never used again. I mean, I think Shawn might have used it 2 or 3 times. And that was it. I don't think anyone ever bought her extra stuff for it or things like that. It wasn't one of those things that you used over and over again. Another one of those toys that were around when we were kids that I think of anyway today, that's utterly useless is Light Bright. I thought Light Bright was cool when I was a kid until you started using it. You know, you took the little colored bits, stuck them in the screen. It was kind of like paint by numbers with plastic bits and light. But once you did it, there wasn't anything left. There wasn't anything else to do with it, which is kind of strange. It was an odd toy, wasn't it? It was a very, very strange toy. Those were a bunch of gifts that you can still buy today. Now, I remember when Alessandra and Valentina were here, because they were Italian, they had never seen a lot of these kinds of toys and games that we had as kids. So one of the things I did for Christmas was I bought Valentina Trouble. Remember Pop-O-Matic Trouble? They had that dice in the middle, and you pushed it, and it popped, and you moved your pieces. And we'd play that almost every night. Valentina loved it. I was looking forward to buying all those kind of cool toys and games that we played with as a kid. Trouble was definitely going to be one of them. Sorry, and all the other board games that we played as kids that she never had a chance to play because her parents were Italian. They didn't play those kinds of games. Yeah, that Light Bright commercial was pretty annoying. I actually saw an ad for Light Bright a few weeks ago, which kind of just threw me off. I was like, oh my God, there's an ad for Light Bright. And again, it's another thing you can get as an iOS app, but it's not. So there's something about pushing into that paper template that made such a big difference in the light popping up. I don't know. As always, if you have any questions about the show, please send them off to me, Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com or on air at yourmaclifeshow.com. As always, we love getting questions from you folks. We come in our starting point photography segment. We got some questions about cameras and gear. This question comes from Jack Cook. Jack says, that wasn't the right one. Hey, where is I had it and I've lost it. Jack, where you at, buddy? There's your question. Jack says, if you had to choose between a telephoto lens or a wide-angle lens, which would you select? Well, Jack, it depends entirely on what you want to shoot. A telephoto lens and a wide-angle lens are 2 completely different kinds of lenses, obviously, but they're also used to shoot completely different things. Wide angle lenses are for exactly that, a wide view of something, most often landscape photography. So if you are standing in front of a mountain range and you want to take a picture of the entire mountain range, you'd use a wide angle lens. Or you are, I was down at the Steveston docks here in Vancouver, or actually out in Richmond this past weekend, and I wanted to get a shot of all the boats that were tied up on the docks. I'd use a wide-angle lens for that. Telephoto lenses are zoom lenses. They're for bringing something far closer to you. And you use that for bird photography or basically wildlife photography. The animal is off, 200 yards away, 500 meters away, and you can't get physically closer to it to get a better picture. So you use a zoom lens on it. 2 completely different lenses. You can't pick and choose based on the lens You have to pick and choose based on the kind of photography you like. And one of the things I always tell folks is look at your iPhone or your smartphone and the pictures you've already taken. What kind of pictures do you like to take? Just look at your iPhone for that. Do you find yourself taking a lot of pictures of wide open spaces? Do you find yourself taking a lot of pictures of people, of friends, of family? A lot of pictures of sports, of things moving. Look at that, and that'll help you show yourself what kind of photographer maybe you'll be and what kind of lenses that maybe you'll want to buy. So keep that in mind. They're not cheaper. Just because a lens is a wide-angle lens doesn't mean it's cheaper either than a telephoto lens. Wide-angle lenses can be very expensive. Telephoto lenses can be very expensive. But you can also get inexpensive wide-angle and relatively inexpensive zoom lenses too. So don't think that's an issue. Question, what is a good DSLR for a professional photographer to buy? In that case, if you're a professional photographer, buy the most expensive camera you can afford. Buy the most camera you can get if you're a pro. If you're trying to make money off your photography, buy the highest end Canon, the highest end Nikon that you can afford. Now, I know my friends at Olympus and Fuji and Panasonic are going to be upset at me for not saying their names, but Canon owns 75% of the DSLR market for a reason. Nikon owns the rest for a reason. Generally, those are considered the two best DSLR manufacturers out there. When you're talking pros, the vast majority of pros use Canon and use Nikon. Yes, some pros will use Olympus. Yes, some pros will use Fuji and Sony and Panasonic. But the vast majority of pros are using Canon and Nikon bodies and glass. So find out what your budget is. Find out what kind of shooter you're going to be. Because remember, you got to buy lenses along with that. And for pros, lenses are very expensive. Pro lenses run from upwards of $2,000 for a good pro lens. Even something is, my favorite lens is a Nikon 24-70. That's $2,000. It's a great lens. It's an amazing lens. I love that lens. I'd love to be able to afford that lens. That's a pro lens. Nikon D4S, I think is the highest end Nikon right now. That's about $6,000 to $7,000 for the body alone. So that's the kind of money you're looking to spend. You're looking at least $8,000 for a pro body and a pro lens. One body, one lens. And if you're a pro photographer or want to be a pro photographer, you're probably going to have at least 2 lenses, probably 4. So your lens is going to cost between $1,000 and $3,000 a piece. So that's how you work on what camera to get for a pro. Brian Monroe says, yes, they're expensive, but they're worth it. Exactly, for the most part. Monty says, I mostly agree with what Shawn said with one possible modification. Spend a little less on the camera body and put the extra into really good glass. I agree with you, Monty, if you are a talented intermediate, but this guy's talking about a professional. If you're a professional, in other words, you are or want to make money on your photography, buy the best body you can buy and buy the best lens you can buy. Combination of both. If you're a talented amateur, like myself, I bought a body I could afford and then a really good lens that I could afford. I can shoot with a D4. I know how to shoot a D4. I can't afford a D4. I could have bought the Nikon D810, but it was more than I could afford, and I took your advice, and I went down a step for the body and up a step on the lens. So we're in agreement for the most part. MacMan says, most pros I know usually have one full frame and one crop body sensor. That's true. MacMan says, go price Canon L glass and be prepared for sticker shock. Hell yes. That stuff is expensive. Absolutely expensive. Following on from last week's show, we get email from you guys Maurice Chevalier, our good friend Maurice, up there in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Listening to your show, I was listening to your discussion rant on Christmas trees. I'm a firm believer in real trees, as I believe most Canadians should be. Not only because they look better, but because they're a major fundraiser for my scout group. A number of scout groups here in Calgary raise money for their scouting activities through Christmas tree sales. However, there is a Christmas tree shortage in the prairies in British Columbia. The problem is there's a blight on BC fir trees, which makes up the vast majority of the tree sales because they're inexpensive. About 60% of our scout tree sales are from BC fir. We got in only about 25% of our BC fir trees, and this is true of most of the tree lots in Calgary, and I'm told across Alberta. Because of the shortage, I bought my tree from my scout group at full price. I don't get a discount. However, it's lying on the balcony. I don't put up the tree until December 15th, like your mom, and take it down on January 2nd, like my mom. He says, that was the rule when I was a kid, so I've kept it. So you might want to go down to your local scout tree lot or on your motorcycle and get your tree soon. We do sell a lot of 3 to 4 foot trees. A tree shortage in Canada. What a concept. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that. Maurice, I didn't realize that there was a shortage of trees. And yeah, some places will have small little trees, but I'm still not strapping a Christmas tree on a motorcycle. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. I don't care if it's a 3 foot tree or whatever. I'm not strapping one to my motorcycle. That's just insane. Charles Plater writes, most years we put up our tree as soon as possible after U.S. Thanksgiving. If my wife had her way, we'd have 2 trees, one in silver and gold, and then one with the hodgepodge of ornaments. We have a fake tree because my wife is allergic to the sap from real trees. The first year we celebrated Christmas together, I had a real tree, having grown up with a fake tree at home, and she broke up with a rash just from decorating the tree. I joke that we have a sickness with buying fake trees because we have at least 2 now. I'm pretty sure we lost one when my brother-in-law annexed it. It's a pre-lit tree and does the job. We generally leave the tree up until New Year's Day or shortly thereafter. I have to laugh when you talk about storing the presents under the tree. We did that at our house when I was younger. I assumed it was a Polish thing because my mom was the one who was adamant about it, but it might have been a leftover from the Great Depression. Both my dad and my maternal grandmother lived through the Great Depression, and I can see it as being something that was passed down from my grandmother. Just thought I'd share. Hope you have a Merry Christmas, Charles Plater. Yeah, we had to, we could still play the Christmas presents. Mom didn't have a problem with that, but when you finished playing with it, it had to go back underneath the tree. It had to go back in the box and then be put back in under the tree. And I think the reason why was because when people came over, my mom wanted to see that she'd bought the kids something. And we were a poor family, and we couldn't often afford a lot of Christmas presents. So Mom wanted to have at least something under the tree to show that she had bought her kids something for Christmas. So I think that's why she did that. Jason Painter in Australia. Christmas does give us many of the same dishes down here as Thanksgiving in Australia. We have turkey and ham and peas, corn, potatoes, beans, green salad. We also have Christmas pudding and Christmas cake. Being a summer event, remember they have the opposite seasons down in Australia, we often feature cherries, which are always very expensive, and mangoes. Isn't that kind of funny? I hadn't thought about that. Mangoes being a Christmas meal treat delicacy. I've never had Christmas. What is Christmas pudding? Jason, you have to explain what Christmas pudding is. And is Christmas cake fruit cake? It's the same sort of thing we have as what we call fruit cake, which I hate, by the way. God, fruit cake is disgusting. Does anyone like fruit cake? Anyone? Do you honestly believe that fruit cake tastes good? I generally don't like bits and pieces in my dessert food anyway. So a fruit cake with chunks of maraschino cherry and walnuts and raisins and bleh. Sherry, I like fruit cake if you put enough rum in it. Just throw the cake away and drink the rum. Jason talking about specific dishes, he was referring to sweet potatoes. We have them, but not common. Squashes of various kinds, but pumpkin is not really in season this time of year. Cornbread, biscuits or scones in Commonwealth countries. Pies of various varieties, sweet potato, pumpkin, pecan. Pumpkin spice is a flavoring we don't see except in stores franchised from the U.S. like Starbucks. Obviously, our climate has to play a large role in the differences. For some reason, pie is not as big here as in the U.S. I'm not sure why. Pie is amazing, he says. I didn't know that. I didn't know pie wasn't a big deal in Australia. Australia being a Commonwealth country, you'd assume that they'd have the same kind of traditions. I know pie is huge in Canada and in the U.S. In general, when we were kids, we had pie at least once a week, some variety thereof. And at Christmas and Thanksgiving, there was always at least a half dozen pies around the house. Apple and lemon meringue and pumpkin and blueberry, and although no cherry. I've never liked. I like cherries, but I've never liked cherry pie. Blueberry pie is good. Chocolate pie my mom would make, which is just, I think, lazy, because it isn't chocolate pie just a pie crust and chocolate pudding in the middle of it. I think that's pretty much what chocolate pie. I mean, I'm not knocking it. It's good, but it's kind of lazy. There's no work involved in a chocolate pie. Leslie C. says, I love fruitcake and Christmas pudding. All right, Leslie, what is Christmas pudding? I don't. What does it taste like? What does it look like? I've never heard of Christmas pudding. Sly can't do rum, so no to fruitcake. Jason says, I'm very interested in this traditional Thanksgiving fare. Next year, I'm going to see if there's an American restaurant in Sydney that serves Thanksgiving dinner. I recently heard from a Brit who attended one in London. It sounds like if your Christmases are the same as your Thanksgivings with turkey and ham and peas and corn, it's pretty much the same, Jason. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of difference in the Thanksgiving celebration. The only big difference I found when I was living in the States was the idea of the deep fried turkey, which is hugely dangerous but unbelievably delicious. If you can find some place that makes and serves deep fried Thanksgiving turkey, and Americans are notorious for deep frying everything, but deep fried turkey, I was surprised at how good deep fried turkey was. Don Beck talking about Christmas gifts. Hey, Shawn, just listen to your thoughts on Christmas gifts or gifts in general. I once heard a generalization I find surprisingly true. I thought you might enjoy it. Women like gifts that you can put on, and men like gifts you can plug in. I think he's kind of right. In general, and obviously all generalizations are poor, but you kind of can't go wrong for the most part buying ladies stuff that they can put on, but not lingerie. Again, guys, don't buy your significant other lingerie. And guys like gadgets and stuff they can plug in. I would agree with that. Don says, I like your definition of a good gift being one that someone really wants but wouldn't buy for themselves. For the record, I don't like receiving gift certificates or gift cards. They just take up a lot of room in my desk drawer because I either forget to use them or don't like the store they're issued to. Or, more likely, I live on Martha's Vineyards. That store isn't nearby. On second thought, though, Amazon gift cards would probably be used. Don Beck. Thanks, Don. I appreciate that. David Farron, talking about Christmas decorations on a recent podcast, you asked about the family tradition when Christmas decorations are taken down. I didn't know. This is why I ask these questions, because I don't know. I love hearing about how other people do other things. And Don says, Don Farron, a longtime listener from Ireland. Don, what part of Ireland? David Farron. What part of Ireland are you from, David? I might come for a visit. In Ireland, the day to take down the decorations is January 6th. It's called Little Christmas Day and marks the end of the Christmas cycle. It was considered unlucky to leave decorations in place after that day. This always happened in our house as long as I can remember. It's also called Women's Christmas Day, and in olden times, it was a day that, having done all the preparation, cooking, etc. throughout the Christmas and New Year, women did not have to do any housework on that day and went out to enjoy themselves. How this square with taking down decorations on that day is no woman in their right mind would have entrusted that task to the menfolk of the family, I don't know. David Farron, longtime listener from Ireland. Thanks very much, David. I appreciate that. That's kind of funny. Monty is talking in the IRC chat room about, I got a smoked turkey this Thanksgiving from my favorite barbecue restaurant. Unbelievably good. Monty, you said smoked turkey and barbecue. Was it smoked and barbecued? Was it smoked barbecued? I never really got a handle on the whole smoked versus barbecued thing down in the States. Is smoked mean barbecued? It probably tastes delicious. I've had a lot of smoked meat in the States, and it was all pretty freaking good. Roddy Paws writes, I've never liked Starbucks coffee, but I used to be addicted to the green tea frappuccinos. You said you didn't like using the Starbucks gift cards because it's basically an interest-free loan. That's sort of true, he says. But if you sign up for the rewards program, every beverage you buy with the card earns a star. After a certain number of stars, you get a free beverage. Plus, you get a free beverage or snack item on your birthday. Yes, I know they use the data for tracking what you buy, but they do that with credit cards too. It's still basically an interest-free loan, but you do get something for using the gift card with the rewards program. I finally broke my Starbucks edition this way. Once I started paying with a gift card, I'd have to reload it when I didn't have enough for a drink. Suddenly, I noticed how often I put $20 on the card. So I stopped going. The opposite of what the rewards program was supposed to do. It's true. Complete opposite, Roddy. It's a good thing, though, with Starbucks is maybe a 3-minute walk from my apartment. Yeah, I'm glad that Starbucks isn't closer to where I live, because I know when I was living on the North Shore and the place I worked was like a 2-3-minute walk to Starbucks, I would go to Starbucks 5 times a day. I was constantly at Starbucks all the time. Always doing Starbucks runs. So now what I've done basically is I've gotten myself some fairly okay coffee making equipment. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different coffee makers of various kinds. I've got an AeroPress, I've got an espresso maker, I've got a regular coffee maker, and I've got the cafetiere. So depending on the mood I'm in, the kind of coffee I want to get, I can make my own lattes and espressos and that kind of stuff, which is a hell of a lot cheaper than going to Starbucks every 45 minutes. Monty, I'm glad I don't really care for coffee. Having a Starbucks edition would be very expensive. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even a tall, generally what I get at Starbucks, I get myself a tall, extra shot, non-fat latte. That's almost $5. So you imagine doing that 5 times a day? That's an expensive freaking habit. So yeah, I had to break that habit after I stopped working at that job and just simply didn't have the freaking money to be able to blow $25 a day on coffee. Monty says, the turkey was just smoked, cooked at a very low temperature for a very long time. Fully cooked when complete, but all of it was done with indirect heat and lots of hickory smoke. Yeah, I can imagine that would be just freaking delicious, Monty. Man, that would be good. I can absolutely see how just spectacularly yummy that would be. I think that's it, folks. I want to say thanks very much to you guys, as always, for being tuned in here on the show. Geez, sorry about that. I was reaching for something and obviously tripped a switch of some kind. Hang on. Tripped a switch of some kind. Thanks very much to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining us here on the show. It is next week. Oh, don't forget that, as always, the the Wednesday between Christmas, just pulling up my calendar now to find out when that is. The show between Christmas and New Year's, we will not be broadcasting Your Mac Life. That's going to be... okay, so never mind. There won't be a show. This is interesting because of the way the calendar runs this year. Christmas Eve is a Wednesday, and New Year's Eve is a Wednesday. I'm not doing a show on either one of those days. Not doing a Christmas Eve show or New Year's Eve show. So it looks like next week will be our last show before Christmas, before the New Year. Before January 7th. Oh, my. All right. Well, then, next week will be our Christmas show. So, send us in your Christmas wishes, emails, shout-outs, the presents you want to get, the presents you're going to give, the presents you would like to get, anything along those lines. On next week's show, we'll make December 17th our last show of 2014, our last show before Christmas, and our last show before New Year's. So keep that in mind. Send me an email to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com with all those Christmassy type things. Like I said, I always love getting emails from you guys, so please send those along to me for our Christmas show That's going to be coming up on next week's episode. Just going to pull up. Oh, and again, don't forget to check out Amplified. If you want to hear more of Jim Dalrymple talking about the news of both his both his article on The Loop about using the iPhone 6 Plus for 3 months, and also about more thoughts on the lawsuit. We didn't get a chance to talk about the lawsuit that couldn't find any plaintiffs, which is an idiotic lawsuit, and also the other things that we talked about on Amplified. Folks, that's it. Until next week, as always, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!